Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Ahoy, hoy. And I mean, by the way, Elliot, amazing job on the new credit sequence. For those listening on audio, he's added a lovely new credit sequence, all our names though, and then featuring Willow at the end. Of course,
it says spontaneous appearances.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough.
Which I thought was more fitting.
I'm just saying I might catch shit from Dottie for this, but that's fine.
Well, Dottie's been really quieter, so we don't...
That's true. She sits in the background and doesn't bark really, so...
It says spontaneous appearances, so there's no guarantee.
That's true. Yeah, she's like a bonus content.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about 2 more Dominion War episodes. We finally covered Way of the Warrior last time, and we're delving into a couple more from season 4. First up, we've got Hippocratic Oath, which, as I shared on the Facebook group, apparently, according to some website or another, is one of the top 10 episodes that deserve revisiting. So we're revisiting it.
I mean, it's a great episode, but top 10? Mm.
Well, ones that...
I think when they do that, it's sort of like ones that people normally don't have on the...
Oh, I've got you. Ones which are underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll go with that then. I will agree. I withdraw my my amendment.
And we're also looking at Starship Down. So, so those are the episodes we're dealing with. Before we jump into Hippocratic Oath, though, it's worth pointing out that this is one of the ones where they shifted it round in the transmission order. And this was meant to come straight after Way of the Warrior and then The Visitor. But they switched it over. And I think you can, when you know that, Worf's storyline makes a lot of sense in this episode because it's all about him kind of finding his place and how he relates to Odo with him being a security officer and everything. So it does feel like a follow-up to the introduction of Worf.
Yeah, I think that would have played nicer.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't think
it's only one episode later, so
yeah, The Visitor's very standalone. So
yeah. I just think if you're trying to build up Worf's character and you've got this episode which then continues on the storyline without making him center of attention, so you get other characters to sort of play a bit as well. Yeah, I don't know. Just seems interesting that does, when I think of it like that pairs very nicely with Way of the Warrior in a way.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it was intended that way, but I don't know whether it was a ratings thing, like The Visitor was a really strong episode. So maybe that's it, because they were hoping to pick up more viewers with Way of the Warrior, and I think The Visitor's a stronger episode than this one, so maybe that's why they switched them round to give them another
strong episode and keep people hooked.
So The Visitor's the one with Jake, and Cisco bouncing through time. Yeah.
It's one of the best episodes of Star Trek.
So this,
I don't know if I feel that strongly about it, but I do like it.
Yeah, I think you'd get a lot of people who'd argue against you there.
Yeah,
that's fair. I'm just not sure best of all time. Anyway,
not the best, but it's definitely up there as one of the strongest.
It tends to do well when they do polls and things. I do think it's a really good episode. But anyway, we're here to talk about Hippocratic Oath, which is, I like Hippocratic Oath. I do think it's a good episode. Not as strong as The Visitor, but there you go. So we start off with Worf then. And I know the whole thing of the episode is, he's got to learn to fit in with security and things like that. But this is really inept because he's just there with this mugshot in the bar for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best way of doing it, Worf.
I was just going to say this whole first scene is great because you've got Worf doing that with his pad. It's Kira's entrance I want to touch upon, not in that way, guys, but it was when she comes over and then she basically just bitches at Quark and then goes, "Oh, by the way, could you make me a tea? Not so sweet this time." It's like, what did you want extra spit in it instead? Because that's what you're going to get for that kind of attitude. She just comes over and goes, yeah, Quark, you little worm, or whatever she calls him. And it's like we've touched upon this before a little bit on the show of how there's a bit of subtle Ferengi racism on here, which they sort of do pay mention to themselves. Quark kind of mentions it in some episodes, but
yeah,
I don't think it completely takes the sin off it. Now I look at how they treat Ferengis, it's like, it's not the most Starfleet. If you look at Next Generation as well, they're pretty
well,
shitty
she's not
towards Ferengis.
Starfleet.
No, I know, but I'm saying in Next Generation, you see how Starfleet treats him.
Yeah.
And this Starfleet Bajoran hybrid station, if you will, kind of treats him the same way.
Yeah, they're really bad with Quark, but
yeah. I mean, he is a bit of a worm, but it's like, consider you're meant to be seeing the best in everyone.
Yeah,
they don't really try that hard with him.
But he's like a known criminal, and it's just a case of catching him.
And this is the thing. This is Worf's whole thing. This episode is like, you should put him in jail. You should do this, and he can't wrap his head round the thing that Odo's kind of thinking the bigger picture. And Quark's one of them people who is good to have on the street, as it were. He's almost like what do they call him? A CI, like a confidential informant. Like, he doesn't do it willingly. But Odo
he's always up to something, so he's bringing in the top level criminals to the state. Odo.
So having him there does help.
Because I think I made a comparison in a previous episode about one of the episodes feeling a little bit like Casablanca, and I think I've heard the producer of Deep Space Nine saying. Say it again. Oh no, it wasn't that one.
That's the one that's made.
It was
an article. That's
no, but I'm saying there was an episode. That wasn't the one I was mentioning, though. There was one of the DS9 episodes we talked about previously.
Way the Warrior.
Yeah, it was Way the Warrior. There was a storyline within there somewhere.
Garrett. That scene they had.
There you go. And I think the producers of DS9 even said that when they were setting up it, they had this kind of feeling of this being a bit Casablanca-esque with a place where people can meet. And Quark very much feels like the sort of dodgy bartender in there who's kind of playing bets at the same time as denying any gambling's taking place.
Yeah. And I do like what they do with Worf in this one. And sort of just to skip ahead to his scene before we talk about Bashir and O'Brien. Worf does have that thing with Cisco, and he's served as security for a long time, and he's finding it difficult to adjust, and that's what they really kind of hammer home in this one, isn't it? It's not the subtlest character arc, and it's not the most significant, really, but I feel like it's good that they did pay lip service to it. Like, he's going to take a little bit of time to adjust.
Yeah, he's had 7 years of being chief of security. It's not like, how does he stop being chief of security?
And also for the audience who are familiar with Worf, it is repositioning him, going, look, you're not going to get Worf exactly how he was. He's got a different job.
Yeah.
You need to change your expectations of what you're going to see.
And I think they did a really good job of highlighting how it was different on, Starfleet security, Starship security, and a space station where it's not just Starfleet, it is a Bajoran space station. It was originally Kardashian, and it's co-run by the Federation. And you've got people from all over, multiple quadrants coming here. It's going to be a bit more tricky than your average just criminal bust 'em. There's longer games, which, as you see here, Odo is playing.
Yeah. So Bashir and O'Brien then, so the A plot of the episode, really. You get some funny stuff at the beginning where it's O'Brien set up his workshop and Keiko's not happy about it and all this business.
I can't see it. I don't get what a problem is. I'm with O'Brien on this. He set his workplace up, so he's in the bedroom where he's intimate with his wife to remind him of her while she's away.
I mean, that's what Bashir says, but this is what I love about this. Not only is it classic Bashir and O'Brien romantic moment, but you've got like that thing which you do with your mates of like you sympathize, you see it their way, and then you completely rip them a new asshole by taking the piss out of them, which is what he does. It's like, so you're saying she was more like me. It's like, well, I wish I was on this runabout with someone else as well.
It isn't. It's like
I know there's
O'Brien's like, I just wish she was more like, and you can see that he was off to say more like you, and then he goes more like a man because he can't admit that to Bashir.
Yeah, it was just, and it was, and then he goes, so you wish you're, well, more like a man. And then Bashir goes, yeah, oh, what?
Yeah.
So you wish Keiko was a man? I wish I was on this bloody runabout with someone else, you little.
Yeah,
And that's what you do with your mate. It's a perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
And-
said it before, but I do think O'Brien and Bashir is one of the best portrayals of friendship between two men in
Agreed.
any television. I just think it's so well observed and so well done.
Yeah,
Like, I
and
imagine that them two are really good mates off screen.
I would have thought
And they're
so,
just
yeah.
doing that ribbing that they do not. They sort of look at the script and go, right, how can we rib each other a bit here like we would normally?
And I think also the idea that, like, the setting up their friendship just before you have their friendship challenge is just perfectly played. It's not overplayed. It's not over like, by the way, you see, we're friends and we're going to disagree. And, you know, they don't overdo it. It's just a lovely little scene.
It's just two blokes ribbing each other.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or one bloke ribbing the other bloke.
And as you say, the Jem'Hadar obviously get involved and it does cause friction between them. But we get a lot of interesting stuff. Like, this is the first time we get the name Ketracel White. Like, we knew from, what's the episode's name? The Abandoned, where they have the baby Jem'Hadar. We know that they need the drug, but we've not given it a name yet. And it's one of them where it's so much a part of DS9 going forward that you're like, oh, it's interesting to see that it's actually here, that we learn it.
Now, I've been trying to work out where these two actually are, because we've established that the wormhole is in Dominion space in the Gamma Quadrant. And they're 6 weeks from Dominion space.
That's a good point. Yeah, they've obviously gotten a long way.
So they've gone through a lot of Dominion space to get 6 weeks outside of Dominion space.
I mean, it's always a bit tricky because the fact they can go through the wormhole proves that certainly where the wormhole is, for some reason, even years later, the Dominion doesn't have a heavy presence in that area, which seems a bit bonkers if you think about it. But I think the Dominion have just said, right, Gamma Quadrant, that's our space. Screw you, hippies. So it's, but yeah, the fact they're 6 weeks out.
Maybe, maybe they're going, we're 6 weeks away from what we think is your space. We don't care what you think is your space, as we've demonstrated. So.
Yeah, because there might be like actual recordable.
Boundaries.
There might actually be recordable boundaries of where the presences of Dominion are, but the Dominion, as far as they're concerned, it's all their space.
It's
that makes sense.
Yeah,
but yeah, again, they should. You think a little while in, they go, you know how we've got fuck tons of ships which can beast the hell out of the Federation. You ever considered positioning some of them around the wormhole?
You know what? They've got a station. Why don't we build a station on our side? If they come through, we'll just blow them up.
Because you can sort of justify why they don't fire on DS9 because Odo's there, and I think it's always implied, if not out and out said, that they want to charm him back into the fold.
They wouldn't. Wouldn't be able.
She does say later, doesn't she? She says that I would give up the entire Alpha Quadrant for you to come home, Odo.
Yeah, and effectively they do in the end.
Yeah,
and the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta wouldn't be able to do it, like physically. It's that ingrained that they can't harm a changeling that they wouldn't be able to fire the guns, and I don't think the Vorta would be able to give the order to do it, even if they were told to. So yeah, it's interesting.
Can I just give a quick shout out as well while I remember? In this episode, you've got Jeremy Roberts, who was kind enough to give me an interview last year, playing Miss O'Clan, the Jem'Hadar soldier. So just a quick hi to Jeremy there.
Yeah. And I get my Jem'Hadar names confused, so I do apologize. But yeah,
I was literally going to the other screen to check that I got the name right as we spoke.
It's first, second, third, fourth, and onwards.
Yep, true.
All I can think of is, Miss, I think that she was gonna die when I hear that name.
Yeah, and the dilemma, obviously, of the episode then is Garanagar, the main Jem'Hadar guy, somehow is cured of his addiction to Ketracel White, and Bashir's got to find a cure, and he's got 5 days basically before the rest of them start to get withdrawal and die. And that sets up the tension with O'Brien, because O'Brien's attitude is, well, don't help him. You know, if they're asking for help, don't do it. But Bashir can't not.
It doesn't quite come out and go as much as Kirk. Let him die.
No, yeah, but
well, I mean, but that's the thing which you're always playing with O'Brien. There is that military history. There's the thing with the Kardashians. Obviously, it's a direct thing, but I always love the fact that he always turns out good, generally by and large, but he's got this war-torn edge to him where you don't know what he's necessarily going to do, as you kind of see play out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bashir obviously has to do it because he's a doctor, and where the episode gets its title, the Hippocratic Oath and everything. So it's a good way of finding tension between these two best friends, pitting them on opposite sides of a moral thing.
It's also a fine line for a soldier as well, because if this was in a war and a soldier got captured or found on the battlefield, they would be taken back and healed by the medics, which presumably O'Brien wouldn't object to. But he's kind of got this leeway here where they're the prisoners of being able to go, well, I'm just escaping. But he is kind of in effect, it is arguable that he's playing against the spirit of that in one way. Because, as we found out, the guy was always going to let them go if they helped him out. He did have a sense of honor, which I would have almost liked to have seen at the end O'Brien struggling with that a bit more, because he seems to shrug it off, and when he's on the ship, he's still very cold.
Yeah, he, like you say, it does tie into his attitude towards the Cardassians that we've seen time and time again, and he seems to have just transferred that wholesale to his attitude towards the Jem'Hadar now.
Yeah.
His escape attempts are quite good. Like, he makes a little gun at one point, and then he makes stuff blow up and everything. So O'Brien is pretty much just trying to escape for the whole episode.
He's become MacGyver for this episode.
I was just about to say that.
The more interesting stuff comes out between Bashir and Garanagar, where we find out kind of where he's coming from. And it's the first time we've humanized the Jem'Hadar, albeit it's just one of them, but to this extent where, like, when he refuses to kill the other guys, he says, well, that's what the Vorta tell us to do. We don't have to do what the Vorta tell us to do anymore. So we're seeing him breaking away much more than you might. It's almost comparable to the Borg acting individually. The Jem'Hadar are not a collective, but they are made genetically to obey the people above them. So
they also fed a drug to keep them enslaved.
Exactly, yeah.
On the people.
And you've got also playing into this the drug withdrawals, and it's sort of questionable. They explore it a bit, but like, how much did these guys originally go, oh, brilliant, we can be free of them? You're right, they have used us. But when they face the reality of the drug withdrawals, obviously you see them question it. You see them go against him, but I wonder if they question the whole operation by this stage, on a grander scheme.
Yeah.
Essentially, he's become, like, in their eyes, probably their torturer by only giving them a small amount, and even having that scene where he shows them to Bashir just to prove a point, going, look, this is what withdrawal looks like. They're basically they're suffering for him to make a point.
Absolutely, and it's never fully discussed, but it's sort of implied that he just has a natural immunity. So this whole thing's hiding to nothing, really.
Yeah. And all he wanted to do was the right thing, but it just it did not work out.
Yeah,
it is a genetic mistake, really.
Yeah,
he'd been on the Ketracel White until he crashed there 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one. It's, even if everything had worked out perfectly, you'd have always got a bad result, because what happened to you could not have happened to them.
Yeah.
Back on the station, then, there's a couple of good bits. Like, there's a bit where they get a briefing on the Klingons, and they talk about Gowron, and they say, oh, well, what Gowron did was he said that they'd won and then went back to the homeworld. That's not what it looked like last week. But there you go. So that's how Gowron spun it.
I love that. I love it. It seems so, they've already shown in other episodes where the Klingons exaggerate their deeds sometimes. Yeah. And this seems like the ultimate end to that.
I love the idea that he's gone back. What's he told them? Like, okay, so your mission was to prove that the founders had taken over the Cardassians. So what's Gowron said? Like, oh, yep, they had them. We killed them all.
Yeah, and this is actually, there's a bit of a parallel, because for a while that's what people were saying, that they needed to try and give Putin, to try and give him like some perceived win, so that he could then go back and say, I want, like, it gave him an out, basically. But I think they tried, and he wasn't that quick to give up.
No,
But that was kind of the hype at one stage, I think.
So be more like Gowron Putin. Just go back, say you've won, and that'll be fine.
Yeah, and we'll go, oh no, he won, and the Ukrainians just went away with their country again. But he won, he definitely won. We'll go along with it. We're happy to do that. Just stop killing folk.
Yes. And then Worf has an argument with Odo. I love the fact that Worf just sort of turns up and, you nicked. And it's that, I mean, there is an interesting point. It was in the Nitpicker's Guide to Deep Space Nine. Do you remember them books you used to get?
Yes.
Now, the author of them books really didn't like Deep Space Nine, so I think they were overly harsh when nitpicking DS9, whereas with TNG, you could tell it came from a place of love. But if you ever read the DS9 one, he clearly hated the show. But anyway, but one of the things he raised here, and he's kind of got a point, is like, we're supposed to side with Odo and go, no, you've ruined the investigation, Worf. You need to learn what the boundaries are. But realistically, Odo's saying, no, I'm not going to arrest the guy who's causing problems in my jurisdiction. I'm going to try and bring down a massive big operation that's outside of my jurisdiction. So to an extent, Worf is actually in the right. He's like, look, there's security on this station. Let's stop the problems. Odo's like, now I've got this big Machiavellian plan.
But if you look at it from Odo, sorry, mate. You're still going.
I was just going to say, was Odo going to go away for several months to bring down this cartel if they hadn't done this?
I mean, the only argument I would make is that it's to Odo's point that this is a space station, not a starship. So in the starship, you go away from the problem, and you can just nick individuals who've been on your ship doing the wrong thing. Yeah. Whereas if you're stuck in that region and someone is extorting that region, it does make an argument that that is his jurisdiction. And plus, I think the idea was probably for the guys to one stage come here to do their dealings. And then he gets them because they know that Quarks is a safe place. So it's, but I do get your point. Yeah,
I am Team Odo on this one, but I do think it's an interesting point to go. Is he pushing it a little bit here? But anyway, back on the planet then, the Garanagars talking about the founders, comparing them to gods, which we kind of knew. But it's good to have that like reinforced and everything. And this leads to the big row between O'Brien and Bashir. And what I love about it is it ends up with Bashir pulling rank on him, saying, I order you to do this. And one of the things that's always come across really strong with O'Brien is how much he respects the chain of command. But there's almost been an unspoken thing in their relationship that O'Brien's the one with more expertise, more
experience, more knowledge,
everything. But technically, Bashir outranks him. So for Bashir to actually play on that and do it, it's almost like a betrayal to some extent. It feels wrong him doing it.
And so, funnily enough, later on, he kind of like goes against that and says, it's like, well, that's not really my style, because that usually isn't. It's just that one extreme situation which he did it because he needed to not. And so the latest scene, I feel like, shows that it's not something he gets off on that he likes doing. It's just, in that specific situation, he felt he needed to. Also, I do love it. Like, you also see the earlier scene where O'Brien tries to escape and Bashir's with him. And then later on, when he's got invested in this problem, invested in these people, he doesn't want to go. And it kind of reminded me a bit. I've recently watched is The Quickening? Or am I thinking the Highlander film?
What, Highlander 2? Yeah. No, there is an episode called Quickening.
It is. Yeah. With the disease, which is blighting the people. I've recently watched that, funnily enough. And there's a lot of parallels, but it is a completely different episode from the fact that in this one, O'Brien's always trying to get them to escape, whereas the other one, they're all invested. And Dax chooses to leave and Bashir just chooses to stay behind. So it's kind of interesting that there's a lot of parallels, but they are very different episodes.
Yeah. And then there is a moment, though, when O'Brien kind of bonds with this other Jem'Hadar, and it seems like they're getting to understand each other, but then he's like, I've got my secret transporter.
Well, doesn't it remind you of the Balance of Terror kind of like kind of friendship, like frenemy kind of thing, where they go, it's like, in another world, we could have been friends.
Yeah, respect.
But we're not in that world. Yeah.
And you do get like Garanagar's command is eking away, and he admits this to Bashir, and he shows that level of trust in Bashir that he's like, okay, well, I'll leave you here, and Bashir promises him he won't try and escape, and I suppose he doesn't have a lot of choice. Even if Bashir had said, well, I'm going to try and escape, he would have had to say, yeah, well, I've got to go and sort my men out anyway, so do what
thank you. Thank you for being honest. Bang, go.
You're right. Could have done that. But ultimately, the confrontation comes to an end when O'Brien chooses to destroy Bashir's work, which, like, you can, again, totally understand where O'Brien's coming from. So he's like, I need to save my friend, so if I destroy it, he'll have to give up. And that's where he's at. And it works, obviously.
I think actually, if you look at it the right way, no one here is really a bad guy. Like, the head of the Jem'Hadar is trying to save his people. The Jem'Hadar have just been tortured.
The Jem'Hadar have
drug
gone
withdrawals
with him because they want to leave the Dominion.
Yeah. And they're just in the thrall of drug addiction. So that makes you do crazy things. So you can't really like they're victims as much as anything. And then O'Brien and Bashir are both doing the right things that they see them, and both arguably are right. It's a kind of a wonderful thing when they manage to do that and get so much conflict.
And Garanagar ultimately, like we said earlier, he was always going to let him go, but he even kills one of his own men so he can let them go.
Yeah.
You know, he's a very tragic character, really. That he was trying to do all this great stuff, and he ends up even worse off than he would have been if he did just left it all alone. You know,
I feel like he's accepted that already he and his men are dead at that stage. Yeah. So there's no point in these guys dying. Like, he wants to give them an honorable death in, like, running through the trees trying to get him, but it's like he realizes this one might just have to die now.
Yeah, it's like you said, nobody's really in the wrong, but there's no winners either in this episode.
No, definitely. And that's how, here you go, Strange New Worlds. This is how you do no one wins and do it satisfactorily.
And then we get the first of, I alluded to these last week, we get the first sort of Cisco Worf scene where he's not really giving him a bollocking here, though he does a lot later in the season. But I think what must have happened in this scene is that Avery Brooks' script must have had the word grey in bold for some reason. It's almost Shatner-esque the way he does it. Like he says, you'll find that on DS9 there's shades of grey.
I really like that, actually, because there's other scenes where I do feel like he chooses the scenery quite badly. And like, there's even a scene, I meant to mention this in Way of the Warrior, where he's on the view screen to Cassie Yates, and it's almost like she's taken lessons from him in dramatic pauses that don't need to be there. It's like, everyone here is fine. And it's just so weird. It's such an Avery Brooks kind of performance that she gives. But this one, I was kind of like thinking of his freeform jazz kind of style. And if you think about that when you're watching this scene, it plays rather nicely. He's just going, hey, there are shades of grey. Yeah, there's almost a rhythm to this scene. There are some weird places.
I absolutely agree. I'm not slating it. It just comes across more Shatner-esque than he usually is. But he's one of them people, you've got Shatner, you've got Christopher Walken, you've got Avery Brooks, who just don't follow the rules of grammar or pronunciation. Do their own thing, and it's wonderful.
And I will say there are other ones where he's just out and out fucking chewing the scenery. Just this one's a jazz performance, which is great. Also, I like the fact that he's working his clock. Because the one thing which I don't think they do enough of in DS9 and Voyager is add things to the ready room. So in like in Next Generation, Picard's room's always getting extra little trinkets added, and I think it shows a wonderul involvement. You don't do it really.
This is what I nicked from that away mission. This is what I nicked from that away.
Okay, he's a tea leaf. I didn't say it wasn't, but with Cisco, he's just got his clock, and that's it. It's like, you can have a few things here and there.
And the clock is a weird one to keep, because it's like, I want a reminder of the time that an evil alien entity made us all go crazy and try and kill each other, and I made a clock.
Yeah, but it's like, that was a fucked up day, but it's a really nice fucking clock. I kind of want to get rid of it, but it's too nice.
That's another one with his jazz performance, because he goes like, it's a clock. When it says
Well,
That's full on scenery
slalom
chewing.
through
You've
it.
just illustrated my point perfectly. That is scenery chewing. This is jazz, this episode.
Now, the last scene in the episode, this is one of my favorite scenes, I think, possibly in all of Deep Space Nine, because, again, it's just how well they're portraying a friendship. Like, you get this scene where Bashir and O'Brien talk about what's happened, and they say, I don't think we'll bother with darts today. And Bashir has that final line where he says, maybe in a couple of days' time. And it's, again, just such a mature approach to the way relationships work to go, look, you're my best mate. You've done something that's really pissed me off, but that doesn't mean we're not friends anymore. It's just going to take a couple of days for me to cool down.
And I think... Oh, sorry, go on.
It's just a lot of TV wouldn't do that. It'd be, right, those two have fallen out now. That's the end of the O'Brien-Bashir friendship.
Just to add to the end of that as well, to me, it was more also the reaction from O'Brien. You know, you were kind of waiting for him to go, yeah, maybe in a couple of days or something like that. But they don't do it. They just have him being stony-faced. He gives a bit of a look to acknowledge what he said, but that's it. I don't think there's another show which would be brave enough to have one of the characters still pissed off even at the end of the episode. There's no like, no, and we're back to normal. Everything's fine. He's still in that rage of war, kind of like, which could stick with someone who's seen such battle in their time. I think once he processes it, he will be on the same page, but he's not just yet. And I thought that was a really good choice.
But yeah, just the maturity of the acknowledgement of the maturity of the relationship to go, it'll be okay. It just needs to sort itself out. I just think that's brilliant. And I don't think...
like you said, this is the best male friendship portrayed on television. Not just Star Trek, but any television.
Yeah, you just don't see it that often done this well. But yeah, so I love that ending.
And maybe it speaks a little, actually, it's very well written for the fact that probably Bashir is the one who would need a happy end. Like, he'd be the one reaching out the olive branch. Whereas, you know, O'Brien, if he's in the wrong mood, he can be a bit prickly, you know, so he might not be the first to sort of admit it's all over and we're still friends. He might need a moment.
I think the way it plays at the end, though, is that O'Brien, rightly or wrongly, is kind of shouldering all the guilt for it. And even though he knows he did the right thing, it's almost like he's waiting for Bashir.
But he's also disobeyed orders.
Yeah.
Because it says that to him that you could have me up on charges.
Yeah.
Disobeying your orders here.
Maybe he wants to be up on charges in a way.
And I think he's respecting the fact that the ball is in Bashir's court now. It's, you know, O'Brien still wants them to be friends and everything, but he's sitting back and going, it needs to come from you, the next steps, you know. I'll wait until you tell me where you want this to go. And I just think it's so subtle and so nuanced. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So should we move on to Starship Down then? Which always makes me think of Watership Down, but there's no rabbits in this. So I think the title's just literal. There's a starship and it's down.
Yep. Yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah, but it does make me think of the killer rabbits. But anyway, straight away, though, you know, when we started this Dominion War coverage about 10 years ago before we got the new Star Trek shows.
I mean, 5 of those years were just us trying to get around to Way of the Warrior.
Exactly. The first episode we covered was Rules of Acquisition, because it's the first ever mention of the Dominion. And the deal that Quark does in that episode ends up being with the Karama. And I love the fact that they bring that back here rather than just a random alien race.
Yeah, random alien of the week. It's the same.
Yeah,
and James Cromwell.
And James Cromwell, indeed, yeah. Well, this have been before he did Babe and stuff, because
I seem to remember. Sorry, this is going on to the films. I remember when they were doing First Contact. So if this is before or after First Contact, it might date a bit. But First Contact, I remember them saying that they reached out to him thinking it's like, well, he used to do Star Trek, but he's done all these huge films since. We'll never get him back, but let's ask anyway. And he just bit that hand off.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, I bet now, if you wanted James Cromwell in full alien makeup, you probably wouldn't be able to afford him on whatever the budget was at the time. But he's great, James Cromwell. Whatever he does.
Oh yeah, a big film recommendation because it's also got Bernard Cribbins in it. Who's utterly charming as always. It's a film called Blackball, which was a UK film. It has
what's that?
Dennis Pennis in it. Paul Kay, I think it is.
Yeah.
I get my K's mixed up. There's too many famous K's. But he's in there as this like out of control guy who just happens to like the game of bowls because he learned it from his granddad. And then American producers try and make it a huge sport. It's got Vince Vaughn in it as the American promoter. It's got whatever his name, Joe Mangle from EastEnders in it. It's a really eclectic cast, but it's so fucking good. I'd highly recommend it.
It's really good.
James Cromwell is the guy who was the expert at bowls who just lords it over everyone in the club. And then when it gets put on TV and everything, he obviously gets very po-faced about it. And there's just a lovely scene where, because Bernard Cribbins, has always been a fan of his bowling and his great work. He kind of challenges him on this, like, look, I've always been such a fan, but why do you have to be such a dick? But he flowers up the language a little better than me. But
my favorite moment of James Cromwell ever was in American Horror Story Asylum. And there's a bit where he's propositioning a young lady. And he says something like, now bend over and show me your mossy bank. And I was like, I've never heard it called that before. But Andy got Emmy nominated for that role in that show. But that always stuck with me for some reason. Anyway, so Quark's been scamming them because, of course, he has, because it's Quark. And Kira's fasting because it's the
anniversary of the emissary.
I know how she feels.
Indeed, yeah.
I'm currently on hour 44 of a fast, so you all just look like talking sandwiches right now.
So we must finish exactly on time today, otherwise Dr. Squee will be very, very hungry. And it sets up the stuff that's going on with Cisco. So they're setting up a load of threads right from the start. But again, those pesky Jem'Hadar. And they turn up, they cause trouble, and it leads us. We're doing a variation on Wrath of Khan. Like we're going.
I just want to say again, this shows that it's the Federation who are the aggressors here, because the Jem'Hadar have turned up for what the aliens called,
the Karama.
The Karama, because they're dealing with the Federation, but they're not there to attack the Federation. They're there to deal with the Karama for disobeying Dominion rules.
True.
Rules. And all they do is fire a warning shot at the Defiant. But the veer off and all of them just go after the Karama ship. Yeah, and then the Defiant gives chase, intercept them, and starts chasing them to destroy them.
I guess it's the whole argument about the Liberators when, it's kind of akin, if you like, to the combined allied forces of the America and the UK and other countries going to Afghanistan. They are a sovereign country, but people are kind of under oppression.
And that would have negated a lot of the arguments that the Federation started it if they had have played up the humanitarian angle of it. Like we know,
play that up.
Yeah,
they don't. Which is true.
All we hear here is that he's broken. He's gone against what the Dominion said. Dominion have told them not to deal with the Federation.
Yeah,
we haven't heard of any atrocities against them for it or anything.
I think they were probably.
But we have heard previously that the founders just kill anyone who disagrees with them.
Yeah,
they've got very oppressive rules. It's been so prior established.
People get disappeared, don't they?
And it's not like they go. It's like, do you want to join us? No, okay, no, brilliant. We'll leave you be. It's like it is a forceful regime in the quadrant.
The Federation are in the right ultimately, but they did kind of bring this on themselves. But it goes very Wrath of Khan because we have to basically make a radar, which I always enjoy it when they do stuff like this. And if you're going to crib from something, why not crib from Wrath of Khan? So,
and also Undiscovered Country where they're doing a torpedo.
Yes.
Well, let's also throw into that the Poseidon Adventure, which effectively, it's a damaged ship trying to, everyone's in there, little pockets trying to work their way through.
Yeah, because the Jem'Hadar do get the jump on them again, and they end up everything going down. I love that Quark blames Rom for everything. That's
yeah,
Yes.
I see why we're having these problems. Rom worked on your contract.
it's not me. My brother did it. Take it out on him.
It's an
And
idiot.
And again, ironically, I was watching a later episode just before this, where it was where Rom's become an engineer and he's covering up for O'Brien, blah blah blah. But O'Brien, like he says, O'Brien's got to have him taking the fall for him while he completes this mission for the Power Race who've taken over control of Keiko's body. There's just one line he goes, so I have to play the idiot and just stay here. It's like, yeah, what I need you to do. He goes, it's all right. I'm Quark's brother. I know the part. And it's just so wonderful because it does have this conceit of like we've seen just Rom as this idiot all the way through, and it shows him got more. Unfortunately, I kind of underplay it later by having him being obsessed with what meals they have on different shifts, which for me underplays the fact that you're meant to be saying that he's not the idiot we've always supposed him to be. Then he's going, oh no, this is the breakfast of his choice in this shift. Kind of makes him look clown shoes again. But I love the threads like this they've got running through.
That's the thing. I think Rom isn't an idiot, but he is a bit of a fool, which those two things
that's a good way of looking at it. Oh, thank you.
But so anyway, Quark tries blaming him, but he ends up getting a load of respect for the Karama guy. Like when he's talking about the lobes, and he's like, "I tell you what, you're really good at this. So why don't we work together and con the Federation?"
Yes.
Which is just great stuff.
I just love the fact that bonding moment. Well, have we got to the missile going through yet?
Wherever.
No, we've got like them all trapped around. We've got Bashir dies after Dax.
Dax and Bashir get trapped together in the bulkhead, and I think that leads to a really sort of sweet thing. And going back to talking about relationships, obviously it's very different to Bashir and O'Brien, but the fact that they acknowledge that their relationship has changed and he's no longer chasing after her being flirty, they're actually just friends now.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bashir is mature enough to discuss that shows how far he's come along since the start of the show.
There's only one bit which I think it's just in the time I'm watching it, not to do with the writing being bad or anything, but there was this little bit where he goes, "Oh, you enjoyed it? Well, I don't have to do it anymore. You enjoy," and there's a little thing just in current times with the news stories which are rife at the moment, which does make me think it's like, also, it sort of just feels a little bit like, so all women really enjoy it. There's just a slight soupçon of that, which kind of snuck into my thinking. I don't think it overly says that, but it just felt less comfortable given current climate.
Yeah, I mean, if you take it to be a statement on women in general, but knowing the character of Dax, it is very in character for Dax.
Oh, it is.
So
I just wonder at the moment with the current stuff, which just keeps on coming out.
It could
I think if you were writing it today, you probably would avoid saying that way. Is the only thought.
Yes, probably. But yeah, I don't think it's meant as a generalization. But yeah, I do take your
just
point.
Makes you think of the male attitudes in the 90s versus today.
It would have been played differently, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sisko has his clever idea, let's make the probes into weapons. And that's the bit, like you say, Elliot, that's very Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
And they do manage to take out one of the ships, but it ends up with Sisko getting concussed. And Kira's now got to talk to him, and she's got to kind of confront. It is very much really about redefining relationships this episode, because you get that with Dax and Bashir, but you also get it with Sisko and Kira that you have this open acknowledgement of, hang on, well, you're a religious figure to me, so it's...
Yeah, she needs to talk to him, and she starts to talk about duty rosters, and she goes, what am I doing? And she goes, no, that's all we ever talk about, though.
Yeah.
We only ever talk about work.
If anything, I think they should have played this more in the series, really. They do mention it, but this is the most they really talk about the fact that, like you say, he's a religious leader to her, but he's also her captain and her friend. It's like that's such a complex relationship. I think you could have got a lot more out of that, really.
And you could have done. I mean, they do kind of touch on it here and there, but yeah, it's never. Yeah,
Well, it's all like she's always just been another officer. on there. She's never been part of his social circle or anything.
I mean, you could even turn on the head.
Work up till then with the two of them.
Because, like, later on when he starts going on basically on missions for the prophets, he's purposely going on missions based on visions he's had. It would have been really lovely to have her along on one of those missions, maybe him questioning it and her going, it's like, no, this is what you're meant to do. Like, you've been sent these visions, and maybe steering his course towards the prophets. I just think you could have just chucked into a few more episodes, just here and there, just a bit of seasoning, not every episode. But
yeah, you definitely could have done. So I like that
she's got engineering, and O'Brien turns around to his other engineers, and they go, we can't contact the bridge, and he goes, I don't think there is a bridge. I don't think
there's left up there. Pretty, nihilistic from O'Brien. Like, no, don't worry, O'Brien. This is just a mid-season episode. I guarantee you that everyone on the bridge is okay.
I mean, it's also like he later on
a couple of red shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, he tells off Worf for being too harsh on the guys. You've just told them everyone's dead up there. That's hardly a morale booster.
No, but I like that. I like that with how he tells Worf that, look, these are Starfleet. These are Starfleet.
That's an interesting implication that this seems to imply that the majority of engineers in Starfleet are non-commissioned, like O'Brien is.
Yeah.
Has never been really dealt with before, and it's certainly not the case with someone like Geordie or Scotty.
No.
I mean, the only thing we really know about non-commissioned officer is they have a different amount of pips every series. That's the only thing. Every performance they give.
Until by this point in DS9, I don't know when exactly they bring it in, but they do have a completely different design of pip for O'Brien. So
yeah, he's got looks like a little bug.
Yes, he was always.
But to be fair, it makes sense. Like, the Academy is at San Francisco, but if you look at the size of the Federation and how many ships, it can't possibly be putting out enough people from that Academy.
Yeah,
for the ships, let alone all the stations and the bases on planets, etc.
I think the implication is, you get people like Rios in Picard. I know he started in Starfleet, but then he came back. But in the middle, you do get people who run their own ships and do their own thing. And I think the implication is, if you're good with engines, you can get a job at Starfleet because they need engineers, and presumably as long as you don't want to go down the officer path.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. If you look at like normal armies, they're not full of officers. Most of them are non-commissioned.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think if anything in the future, I would hope the non-commissioned officers are treated on a par with commissioned officers, because there's no reason why with a little extra
still progress.
Yeah, I don't see why not. If they're doing the same job, which they do end up doing alongside commissioned officers.
Yeah.
I think you can. I think you'd probably have to take like you had Deanna taking that commander's exam. There's probably something like that you have to take.
As I understand from conversation of a friend of mine in the army, this was years ago, so don't take this as gospel. I'm sure he was right, but my memory may not be. He seemed to suggest that there was a lot of extra exams and extra kind of training, essentially to the point where it's not worth it for a lot of non-com officers.
Maybe so. And then, I think O'Brien is the only explicitly non-commissioned officer we've ever had in Star Trek. So we're probably never going to get...
I think my only problem with the scene was it was just how quickly after Worf... I know it's a time constraint thing, but it's how quickly he goes like, right, okay, well, here's a problem you could solve maybe. And they go, what about this? What about this? Solved. Maybe give them a scene to come back with an answer. Jeez, I know they're good, but it's sort of like a bit too magic.
It's too cutesy, that scene, isn't it? It's like,
they're finishing each other's sentences.
Really corny, but I liked it that as soon as Worf doesn't push them, these guys can sort it out. If you ride them,
right, give them the job to do. And
I know it just got a bit cutesy when they're finishing off each other's sentences. It's just a bit, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you. So it's like, this is really brittle.
It's very cheesy, but I like this scene.
I don't like it, but
I just would have spread it over two scenes where you've got them and give the problem. They're going, great, we can get that done. And they go to do it. And then they explain what they've done afterwards because they've kind of problem solved as they went. That's what problem solving isn't being given a problem, then going, this is the answer. It's workshopping. It's going through it.
Yeah,
That's real.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a problem, was it? It was like, we want it to do this. That's how we do it. Off we go. Yeah. Anyway, it's almost like, well, why didn't you think of that, lads, if it's that easy? Anyway. Cisco and Kira then, so she tells this story. I wanted to know what the outcome, and I know we only got bits of it, but I feel like we should have been told the outcome of the story.
Oh, we do, because they end up going back to the farm where they belonged.
You're right.
Just we don't know what that means.
They do they sell all the stuff that's causing all the problems. But I like that it's framed as almost like a traditional sort of fairy story. It sounds like an Aesop's fable kind of thing, doesn't it? Like you've got these three brothers and one of them's too greedy and one of them's too this and one of them's too that, and the answer's somewhere in the middle. You know, I like this idea that all cultures have their own variations on these stories, and Kira has Cisco it.
It also makes sense to who Cisco is, because you get the feeling he's the guy who likes stories. He's the guy until Anson Mount as Pike. He was the one who'd most want to go for a pint with, probably out of the captains. He was a bit more sociable. He would hang out with them on his free time. There was that kind of ebb and flow, and I think the station setting allowed for it a bit more because it is a less, a less formal setting in some ways. It's got a different vibe to it. So you feel for Kira that you'd want to impress this guy. You want him to want to be your friend as well as your captain.
And the other thing on top of that is, yes, she wants to be his friend. He is a captain, but he's also like the Pope. So
she has like this religion thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers to them being able to be friends. Like you can see that. I don't think from Cisco's point, I don't think he thinks about it, but she has to hold him in that level of reverence,
And it embarrasses him when she does do that in front of him. That she's reverent to him.
Yeah,
she's had to not be like that in front of him, even though she feels it.
And it's a lovely way for him to find out without him essentially being anyway looking like a dick or anything, because it's like he hasn't purposely pushed her away. But he's ended up pushing her away with the religion. It's all baby with bathwater a little bit. And he gets to realize it in a nice way. And then they don't have to have a big, heavy conversation about it afterwards. He just rectifies it. He just goes to the solution.
Yeah, which, as with everything, is you go and watch a baseball game. So there we go.
And he goes, ask Quark about the hot dogs. Don't ask what's in them, though. Trust me.
Yeah, you really don't want to know. To be fair, replicated hot dogs are probably so much better than real hot dogs.
Well, it's probably got more natural meat.
I like hot dogs.
I
like the tinned hot dogs. The cheap ones.
Yeah.
Straight from the tin. I don't bother eating them up. I just
you don't
straight out the tin.
Aldi, you can get vegan versions of them, and they taste exactly the same because, like them, there's no meat in them.
That's true, actually.
Just less testicles in these ones.
Yeah, a vegan hot dog is just a hot dog, really. There's no, I do like that Kira at one point prays for Cisco because, like we've said, she's aware of how uncomfortable this all makes him. But she's like, well, hang on, one of the major figures in my religion is dying. And I need to shoot a prayer out there.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, it's also like, I'm trying not to be this. However, this is who I am. So I have to, this is the only way I know to care for you, is to pray for you. I didn't even think about it in terms of him being the Pope, basically. I just thought it was like, this is what she knows to do when someone's who she cares about's in danger. But you're totally right. That you could totally see it that way as well. But it's just, it was just really nice of like.
I've always seen it the way James has that.
Yeah.
She says a prayer. And she knows he won't like the fact that she's saying a prayer, but she can't help it because that's.
Oh no, I agree with that. I meant the thing. I wasn't thinking about the fact of him being effectively her Pope.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of it. It's what she knows to do when someone's in harm. Like you were saying. Yeah, I thought it was really nice.
So then, Quark and the torpedo. I think this is all really good fun. I love the wrinkle that it adds to it. Though actually, we sold them that, and they're like, well, it's.
Yeah, well, his whole point has been is that they're really honest and a fair wage for a fair day's work, and
Yeah, should I
You
offer
make
them a
a
refund?
reasonable profit. You don't rip anyone off. You make sure it's right.
You know
And then
what?
it's like,
Can we put the Karama in charge of the utility companies? That
Oh yes. It's also the fact that at the end of it, when they do have it's when the missile comes through and it's like, yeah, should we offer them a refund?
yeah.
And then they go into that's a hilarious little moment, but then they go into Star Trek laughing for the next 3 or 4 lines, which I've sort of started really looking out for, because there was an end episode where again, one I recently watched, where Dax and Worf end up just laughing to the camera for half a minute, like at the end of the episode, to just a nauseating extent. And this one kind of almost goes into that before Quark goes, hey, but it isn't funny. Let's look at it. You know?
but it brings these two together.
Oh yeah, no, I think the first laugh was that.
Kanama down to Quark's level a bit. That's what's amazing, that because normally you have, like with Star Trek stories, it's bringing people up to your level, but this is like these find a common ground because it brings him down to.
Yeah, you're right there. Actually, that is the opposite of what Star Trek usually does. It's like, come down and play in the mud with me. And then,
I think Quark does, going back to what I was saying earlier as well, Quark does make you really think about, well, how much should we hate? Like, how much should he be hated upon? Some stuff he does is out and out bad, but it's like other stuff, it's just sort of human, kind of in a funny way, those Ferengi.
And again, it's because it is their culture, it's hard to judge them for it. Like, in our society, we make allowances for behavior that we might consider unusual because it's someone else's culture. So you'd have to be like that to an extent with the Ferengi and go, well, okay, he's tried to rip you off, but that is literally
their culture.
Yeah.
I know there's got to be a point where it stops, and that point should be where it causes someone harm. But does Quark cause them harm? Because at the end of the day, if you're going willingly to whatever deal he's offering you, then...
has he caused any harm? He charged an extra 4% to look out for shapeshifters. That's an important security job to the Alpha Quadrant.
But did he look out for shapeshifters?
Yeah, he's probably put Odo down on his bill. It was like, yeah, that's how we look after to keep shapeshifters away by Odo. It's like
I can't remember what the other 6% was for.
Probably a handling fee or something. The Federation will be checking for shapeshifters for free. But Quark has decided to charge for it. And
that's what I mean. I bet everything is itemized, which he's put. How they do it is someone else doing it. He's just
and he won't be passing the profit on to the Federation.
No.
But he introduces the concept of gambling, and this is the thing about we've got to defuse the torpedo and everything. Which ultimately Quark makes the right call, and it doesn't blow up, which is nice.
Which I think we could guess it was going to be. You have to have that tension.
But it's still good though, and I love how quickly Quark does it, and it does show that Quark is actually quite brave at times. They could have left it and took the chances on someone else fixing it, but Quark's like realizes no, something's got to be done with it, and
this could go off any minute, and it doesn't look like anyone's coming to us any minute.
And he has the guts to do it. So Quark does have a lot of laudable qualities as well.
Certainly.
I like Quark as a character. I think it was a really good decision of the S9 to put a Ferengi in there. And as a bar owner, it's the perfect role for a Ferengi.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and getting back to the point before, it's like it shows that for everything he does to sort of like maybe swindle people, he's a very good bar. He does keep the spirit alive on the space station. He at the beginning, he's made a community leader, and he kind of lives up to that role very well in a lot of episodes.
I forget which episode it is, but there's one where O'Brien's got a dilemma, which I know could be a lot of them. And Quark gives him some advice, and O'Brien says, "Thanks, barkeep." And then Quark walks up to Mon and he goes, "So, what's bothering you?"
Yeah.
I mean, they even have.
I know what you mean, and I can't think which episode.
Oh, it's Captive Pursuit, isn't it?
Is it that early?
Because Quark's change the rules. And O'Brien goes, change the rules, of course. Thanks, Barkeep.
Yeah, it's one of those light bulb moments. There's even like with Quark, when he's like loses everything from the bar, and then they're basically giving him stuff, but they're saying it's like, oh, we need to store these tables and chairs somewhere. Do you mind, Quark? And he goes, I'll have to charge you a storage fee. It's like, and Cisco gives him a look for a second and goes, a minimal one. He goes, go ahead, guys. And it's almost that says everything about the character. It's like, as long as you know he'll try and con you,
and you try and make a profit out of anything.
Yeah, and as long as you
make
accept
a profit out of the fact that you are giving him stuff to help him out.
To be fair, that episode you're talking about, he's been sort of excommunicated from Ferengi society, so he needs profit more than ever at that stage. And
it's sort of like that feeling of like, if you give him a small percentage like of leeway, both when it comes to making extra profit and also when it comes to the rules, he will give dividends in what he gives back to the station. And I think that scene says everything you need to know. Just that one moment between him and Cisco says everything you need to know about Quark and how Cisco deals with him and how the Federation deals with him.
There's another great bit with Cisco where I think it's early season 2. And Quark says, look, Captain or Commander, you begged me to stay here. And Cisco says, I didn't beg you, I blackmailed you. But anyway, we digress. So Worf saves the day. Everybody's happy at the end. And Dax saves Bashir from Morn, who, as we know, will talk the hind legs off a donkey, even though we never see it. So...
Although the other thing I was thinking,
we have a lovely end scene though with Kira and Cisco.
Yeah.
Can I just jump into the darts first
out
quickly?
as a friend.
Yeah.
I just want to mention the darts while we're there. I just love the fact that he sat there. Obviously, he's been cornered by Morn for a good half an hour, whatever it's been. And then you've got Dax comes over and goes, hey, it's your thing in darts. Like, oh yeah, I was just sitting here for half an hour until my turn came up. If you think about it even for a second, the excuse doesn't make any sense.
Unless it's a really big game of darts, like literally everyone goes up and throws. So
everyone in the station gets their three darts.
Everybody is playing this game of darts.
Well, maybe they're playing winner stays on, and it's his turn to go up.
You know what it is? It's bullseye. It's bullseye. Somebody else, Bashir got knocked out in the early round, but they've chosen not to gamble. So Bashir gets to come back and see if he can win speedboat.
I like your plot flanges, guys. I will buy them.
Right then, I think we could leave it there for this week. But next week, we're going to be talking about another two-parter, Homefront Paradise Lost, as the Dominion War takes another turn. So that's going to be great fun. If you want to get in touch with us, we're at RetrekPod on Twitter. You can email us, retrekpod@gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook, on YouTube. We've got the videos of all, well, since we started doing the live streaming are on there. Elliot's Retrek Model Studios is on there. And Dr. Squee, tell us a bit about Squee Fest.
Oh, I was just wondering, we've probably got banners for all this stuff, which we should start using. So, like, yeah, there you go.
There we go.
We need to put this on the screen when we're doing it. I'm just saying.
He just fired it all off too fast.
He did. I was like, yeah. So we're going to have to use those in the future. Sorry, anyway. Yes, Squeefest. Squeefest, you say. It's Squeefest 4 coming your way on the 10th and 11th of September from 2 p.m. till 2 p.m. That's Saturday till Sunday. I have got a couple of announcements which we made earlier on this week. First of all, our first guest announcement, the wonderful Ian McNeice. I actually mentioned Blackball, which he does appear in, just funnily enough. But he's probably best known as Churchill from Doctor Who or from Doc Martin, which is absolutely charming in as well. Great actor. He's one of these people who's been in absolutely anything you care to mention, including recently Sandman, which he appears in just a scene in. And also, I announced a couple of podcasts. First of all, Netheads, which is a guy called Will Wilkins, who gives you all your latest geek news and reviews and a bit of tech information in there as well. And one, which I don't know how I got them, but these guys called Retrek Podcast. Look, the two main guys... the two main hosts seem really good. There's some twat who seems to have ingratiated themselves onto there, but apart from that, the two main guys are great. And there's a dog which pops up every now and again, which is studiously quiet tonight after she appears in the credits. I think she's gone back to a trailer.
Credits and she's disappointed everyone.
She's got a big head. She's gone back to a trailer in disgust. It's like, I will be back from my scene later.
Yeah, that's
but yeah, we've got loads of really exciting guest announcements to come up, including one Star Trek guest, which I'm just confirming up at the moment. So I'll tell you about it off air, Jim, because I
know who it is, and I'm very excited, and we'll be staying up till
the
early hours Saturday morning to watch that.
It's sort of in the vein of previous years where I've had a couple of stars from the show. I've kind of more moved behind the scenes. So last year we had the wonderful FX expert Ron Beemore.
Yeah,
and maybe we've got another wonderful behind-the-scenes person who's worked on lots of Star Trek. So yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Well, we'll look forward to that one. Keep an eye on the socials for Dr. Squee, and you'll find out all about that.
Yeah, they'll be on our pages and our socials as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Next week we'll announce what we're going to talk about at Squee Fest.
Yes,
it should be good fun.
Oh, we better decide.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll be keen to hear this.
Making it sound like we had it planned out. The tension, not that we're useless.
We're pretending we know what we're doing.
Yes.
You didn't tell me that.
No.
You have to give the signal.
It's not though that we haven't thought about it. It's just because there's so many great options. Like there's wonderful episodes of Star Trek. There's some stuff maybe inspired by Star Trek. There's so much to think about.
Lots to cover. We could do Devil's Revenge 2. Oh no, they didn't make a Devil's Revenge 2. Never mind.
Yet.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for being with us this time, and we'll see you next time on the Retrack.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
For the good of the Dominion.
Fascinating.
For a second there, we were going for the Naked Gun ending of just